Welcome to another episode of the Understanding Ultra podcast, the podcast that likes to ask the question, why? We aim to give you the insights from the top ultra runners and trail runners from around the world, the people that work in the trail industry, and everybody else. We dive into training, nutrition, mindset, and racing strategies to help you to become the best ultra runner that you can be. So without further ado, let's speak to our next guest. Michael Jones, welcome to the Understanding Ultra podcast.
Hello, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for giving us some of your time this evening. Now, tonight we're here to talk about the Ultra Trail Snowdonia and how that relates to UTMB and this World Series that's happening all over the world. It's not baseball. It is actually ultra running. So just to we're going to clear a few misconceptions up. But before we talk about all about that, plenty of time for that. Firstly, I just wanted to talk to you. Is it Mike or Michael? What do you prefer to be called?
Mike's fine.
Mike. Okay, Mike. So just tell us about yourself, what you do now in the industry, what you've done before, and how you began as an ultra runner and got to the point where you are now.
Yeah, sure. I'm the race director for Ultra Trail Snowdonia, which is now owned by UTMB. We'll get on to that later. I also have another company that more people would know about called Apex Running. I set that up in late 2017 with Ultra Trail Snowdonia, and also doing one-to-one coaching, that kind of stuff. Fast forward to the next year, and then I launched the Snowdon Sky Race event, which is a more technical, shorter event. And I also have another event called Race Across Snowdonia, which is a 2-day event. So yeah, now I'm more of a race director, but I've definitely been more of a runner myself. A few years ago, I mentioned late 2017, and that was when I was racing and training almost full time. I was working on a freelance product design project at the time, and just pretty much living the full time runner dream, really, figuring out what I wanted to do next, work wise, really. And yeah, spotted an opportunity for what I felt was something that the UK scene lacked, which was a real big gnarly mountainous ultra that also had a marked course, and something that could be a worthy host to an Ultra Trail World Tour event. The Ultra Trail World Tour is now being superseded by the UTMB World Series, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But working further back from that, 2015 was my first UTMB experience, and it was in those years of just completely immersing myself in the ultra trail running scene. I totally fell in love with the sport. It was it gave me an excuse to travel to places and experience events that I wouldn't have made the effort to go to otherwise, really. And it was through that I sort of thought, well, what could an event like this be like in the UK? These other events that I'd been to, which many of them were Ultra Trail World Tour events, and I sort of had that maybe it was a bit of race director's ego, but I had this passion project in mind for within 5 years. I'd like this Snowdonia event to be part of the Ultra Trail World Tour and to be known around the world, and to put Snowdonia on the global trail running map, really. So I like to think I've started to do that now, and I look forward to the next 5 years and what that entails, really. So yeah, I'm your typical runner turned race director. I don't run as much as I used to. I couldn't compete to the levels that I used to. Not very naturally talented runner, so it did take a lot of miles to get to the standard I was at, which was by UK standards pretty good. But I'd won the Lakeland 100 twice, but by global standards, not outstanding. Certainly not professional level. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. Did you move to Chamonix? So you lived there? for a bit?
Yeah. So in 2017, I was doing this little freelance product design project, so I could live anywhere. And Robbie Britton, prolific UK runner, was living in Chamonix at the time and renting a whole. It was a lovely chalet in a place called Mont Rock, which is in the north of the top end of the Chamonix Valley near La Tour. And the flat upstairs was a room, and that was available. So I was actually living with a Swedish runner, Mimi Cockter, and her dog Enzo. And yeah, Robbie was really helpful in many ways. He taught me how to coach and what that involves, but he also imparted a lot of knowledge about the sort of more professional aspect of being a pro trail runner. You know, what sort of bonuses brands give out, and that I thought that was really eye-opening experience. And at the time, Mimi Cockter was running for Salomon, and just seeing the way she lived and worked, really.
So with immersing yourself in that kind of culture, you've seen it firsthand exactly what it takes to put on a big race like UTMB. I know I've been to Chamonix many times, but in my previous life, before I started taking trail running seriously, I did a lot of snowboarding, and I spent many winters visiting Chamonix and in the Valley Blanche, and it's just the scenery there is absolutely breathtaking. But having said that, the Snowdonia is breathtaking as well, isn't it? So it really makes sense that so you could make an iconic race around Snowdonia and it be on a level, because like we were speaking beforehand before the podcast about our friends in common that we've got, Ben Wells. I've been quite a few times up to Snowdonia, and he's guided me around on places where I would never dare to go by myself, but going with such a competent runner who's also a mountain guide, you kind of feel a bit safe. But is that what you're trying to put across then, the fact that UTMB, as much as it's amazing, that you can have a piece of the cake right here in the UK? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've summed it up pretty well there. In 2019 at UTS, we had Grégoire Kermer. I think that's how you pronounce it. He's a French guy. He lives in Chamonix. He was second at UTMB last year. Him and his brother came over to the event just to finish and just to enjoy it. I think it was his brother's birthday present, kind of just a family trip. And it was interesting hearing them talk about how many. They made a big deal about the amount of lakes that they passed, like loads of little lakes, and it just like you take that for granted, but that them based in Chamonix, they don't really have, like, they have glaciers and a bit of stuff that we don't. But it was interesting to hear that. And apart from just the lakes, there's loads more to the Snowdonia area. And I just have a real passion for the area. I've been born and raised in Chester, which is 90 minutes drive away, if that. So I know the area very well. Have lived there previously, and I just think it's really special, and it's an area that I like to think that other people should know about. Everyone knows about the Alps and the Dolomites and see those as the must-visit trail running destinations in Europe, but like in the UTMB World Series, there's new events popping up, like the Julian Alps Trail Run in Slovenia. So they're in a similar way. They want people to know about Slovenia, and I want people to know about North Wales and Snowdonia, really. So
so you're sort of advertising all the benefits of having that kind of quality of a race, but having it locally over here in the UK. But what about being the race director and being a race organizer, that you've been for all these races? How do you cope? Because obviously it's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? Being a runner and having the nerves and the excitement of racing, and then being on the other side of the registration desk. There will be a big difference. Is it as stressful as I imagine it would be, being a race director?
Once the event's there, that's actually a lesser stressful period for me as a race director. The most intense period is sort of between 4 weeks and 10 days out, where it's like you know, it can be really quite bad. But once the event's there, you hope that everything has been planned, and you're surrounded by a great senior event team and also a great bunch of volunteers, which has always been the case. And you brief them as well as you can, and they make the event happen before your very eyes. It's weird. It's like I've been at UTS last year when I was just sat around like I didn't really have anything to do, because you know it was, yeah, the stage that I'd set was there and people were making it happen, and you know, and yeah, that's you can, yeah. I mean, the first UTS, that was a very different story. I've learned a lot about events in a short space of time. That was a very stressful, almost out of control experience. But it was a baptism of fire, and from that you learn pretty quickly like what needs to be done, what the key milestones are in the weeks and months leading out from an event, and yeah, if you drop the ball, then you'll pay for it later. So
yeah, I suppose it's a kind of one of those things that no one can really explain to you until you do it for yourself and experience that. Do you think your experience as a runner and doing all these great events over Europe, do you think that sort of informed the way that you have set up your events?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to think that my experience as a runner, particularly when it comes to the route design and, you know, the food and drink that we have at the aid stations, the things that I labour about and really care about are the things that the runners experience. You find in the trail running race director world, there are different. Every race director is different, and every race director has their strengths and weaknesses, I think. And I like to think mine as a strength is that I really understand my customer, because I was them not so long ago, and now you know, I'm entered for CCC this year. Still got a passion for the sport, and yeah, just an appreciation and a care for the details that maybe, I don't know, maybe I create more work for myself by obsessing over the logos or certain things. But yeah, I would say, yeah, I'm a runner just like my customers are. So I hope that shows in the race, you know, when people set off from the start line and before, you know, registration and stuff. I know that the last thing runners want is a massive queue, and so we try and plan those things out.
Yeah, that's a valuable experience that you've gained over the years. So let's talk about what's happened then with UTMB. So I'm just going to go back to my notes because there's quite a bit of information here. So UTMB has obviously been going since 2003. That's 18 years that's been going, and they've now launched this World Series. Now, to me, that straight away I thought of baseball, just because that's the only World Series that I've heard of before. But there's obviously been that merger with Ironman coming into UTMB, and they have to create this global trail running community, isn't it? With all these different levels of the races. So I think at this point it's probably best that we talked about this infographic that was on one of the videos explaining. And once I sort of watched this YouTube video and had a look at the way it was explained, it seemed to make a lot more sense to me. So if I can screen share, if it will work this time. Yeah, there we go. You see that okay? Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. So
yes.
Do you want to sort of explain how it works then using
I mean, well, yeah, you mentioned Ironman there and the other things. I think that's a topic for another conversation, the sort of business motives behind the UTMB World Series. We could talk about that in a little bit, but yeah, I guess I'm here just to share a bit more of understanding about, if you want to do UTMB, what the new qualification process is. And that's where this new UTMB World Series comes in. So yeah, just to help preface this, it's probably good to talk about the old points-based system of qualifying for UTMB. So roll the clock back a couple of years. If you wanted to race UTMB, you had to get, I think it was 10 UTMB points from no more than 2 races. So various races around the UK. I think there was about 140 at one point. As an organiser, you could apply for the UTMB points, fairly straightforward process. And then each race would be given a number of points based on basically how tough it was. So if it was a gnarly 100-miler, it might be 6 points. If it was an easier 50k, it might be 2 points. If it was a trail marathon, it might be 1 point, something along those lines. So to enter the lottery for UTMB, there's 2,300 places for UTMB itself, and it's pretty much double, if not more, oversubscribed. You had to basically prove your worth, for want of a better phrase, by having these points that you could acquire within a 2-year period. So you had to do 2 races before you could go into that ballot. So roll the clock back to 2014. I applied to get in to UTMB, had the points, didn't get in, reapplied the next year. And the next year, if you apply concurrently, then you get double the entries into the lottery, basically. So the second year, happy days, got my place to run UTMB in 2015. That sort of changed a little bit the last couple of years with the introduction of what UTMB have branded running stones, and another company basically bought a share in UTMB and helped them to establish UTMB International. So the UTMB brand, if you like, was expanded into South America. There was Oman by UTMB, Thailand by UTMB, various other UTMB branded events. So it was like Oman by UTMB in the logo. So that this sort of running stones thing isn't actually massively such a new concept. And I think at the time, I probably should know this, but I think at the time, if you finished one of those by UTMB events, you then got a guaranteed entry to Chamonix Mont Blanc UTMB. So that was the first sort of, I don't want to say transition away, but development where UTMB basically cottoned on. We've got a crown jewel event here that's becoming so oversubscribed. Is there any way we can develop this commercially in other areas by developing the brand internationally? Now, last year was a little bit confusing because the Ultra Trail World Tour also offered running stones. So if you finished UTS 50, no matter what the distance, for the 50k, 100-mile or 100k, you got 3 running stones. Now each of those running stones is equivalent to 1 entry into the UTMB ballot. So yeah, last year was odd because you had these UTMB international events like Val d'Aran in the Spanish Pyrenees, but then also UTMB World Series events. So yeah, so the company that had that stake in UTMB to develop those international events handed that stake over to Ironman recently. So that's where Ironman come into the game. Again, I don't want. It's probably stuff people want to know, but they just they don't know what questions to ask, or they just see Ironman getting involved and jump to the conclusions. You know, certain conclusions. But yeah, from now on, the Ultra Trail World Tour is no more, and that's basically being superseded by the UTMB World Series. So it's although it seems a bit confusing at the moment, once the penny drops and it sinks in, it is a more straightforward process to qualifying for UTMB. It's probably more complex than the very old way of just the points-based system, even I have to admit, but it's more straightforward than certain. Yeah,
I think once I saw this this infographic and the way that it's explained on the video, then it makes sense with everything sort of funneling into the peak at the top with the fact that you've got all these. So at the bottom, it's saying you've got thousands of races that are labelled as part of the World Series qualifiers. So you've got the qualifying races, then you've got the events, the World Series events, and then you've got the majors, which is like the continental not finals, but the continental.
Yeah. So at those sorry to interrupt. At those majors, that they will offer double the amount of running stones. So just to like avoid beating around the bush, that just you need a running stone from any World Series event to enter the lottery. Now I've seen, I don't want to name any names, but just to it adds to the confusion, but I've seen other races, possibly unknowingly, they've advertised, they've got the World Series qualifier logo, and they've said, oh, we offer UTMB points, and the well, if people enter that race thinking that they're going to be able to qualify, they're going to be a bit disappointed. So yeah, just to reiterate the points, that currently Ultra Trail Snowdonia is the only UK event that's a UTMB World Series event, and therefore offers running stones to finishers. And it's those running stones moving forward that will be the only way you can qualify for the World Series finals. Now, that might be a turn off for a lot of people. A lot of people might think, you know what, I don't want to have to be told I've got to do these World Series events to enter the ballot, so sod you, I'm not interested anymore. We get that. We know we're not trying to convince people that UTMB Mont Blanc is the only event worth doing. But there are a lot of people out there who, like want to do a big event in Snowdonia. UTMB World Series have given us quite a hefty amount of operational guidelines that we have to run the event to. So they've got very high standards for event delivery. Therefore, they've also got a very big event budget. So yeah, UTS this year is going to be a big step up in terms of quality. It's not all take from UTMB. They want the best World Series events. So yeah, I hope this. Yeah, I hope people don't see the negatives in this and can see that there are some positives.
Yeah.
And it's not our goal to try and turf other events out or anything, or compete with other people or whatever. But yeah, just to explain this, so there are thousands of events around the world that are UTMB qualifiers, and by finishing those events, they contribute to what's called your UTMB Performance Index. That's basically, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. I think that's also where a bit of the confusion is. But yeah, if you want to get to UTMB, CCC or OCC, you need to finish a UTMB World Series event or major event. Sorry, I've rambled on a lot there. There's quite a lot to cover.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I think there is a lot of confusion out there about, and it's all to do with the stones and getting points and stuff. But as far as UTS is concerned, where does UTS come in on that pyramid?
So we're a UTMB World Series event. There are currently 25 events around the world. There are plans for more to be added to the series in the coming years. Initially, I was meant to be working on a second event for next year, but that might be put on hold until 2024. So if you finish UTS 50, you get 2 running stones. If you finish the 100k, you get 3. If you finish the 100 miler, you get 4. Just being honest, if you I wouldn't risk it with the 100 miler, because statistically there's a 50-50 chance you might not make it to the finish, and then you won't get any stones at all. So yeah, I'd go for the 100k.
So with those stones, then what can you then do as far as like the getting into a major event, so then the next level up from the event? So UTMB World Series event.
Sorry, yeah, this infographic actually is a little bit confusing, because it implies that you have to do a World Series event before you go to a major, but that's not the case. You could enter Val d'Aran Pyrenees and you know, as a World Series event and get double the stones. Yeah, so that pyramid's not great, because it implies that you have to go through all 3 steps when that's not the case. Yeah.
So you can come straight at the major section of it.
Yeah. So those
that part there.
Yeah, and those major events are designed to be bigger events. Like Val d'Aran in the Pyrenees are looking at around 5,000 to 6,000 people this year. So you know, UTS couldn't cope with that many people. There's one in Thailand, and then they're working on, no, sorry, not Thailand. I think it's Trans Lantau in China, and then they're working on an American major event. So at these events, there'll be live broadcasting, and they'll make a big, you know, much bigger media hoo-ha about that. And then there are other events in the calendar.
So if you get your stones in those events, what chances of then going to OCC, CCC, UTMB after that?
Yeah, each running stone represents one entry into the lottery, so you can collect as many stones as you like. You know, you could, I guess, commercially, the goal is to get people who are super dedicated to getting to UTMB, doing multiple World Series events each year. So yeah, say for example you finished UTS 100, you'd have three of those entries into the lottery. If you didn't get in, they roll over to the next year, you know, so you can accumulate them. They don't get blanked off your runner's file. Yeah.
So in theory, they're kind of rewarding loyalty then, aren't they? So if you're doing multiple World Series events and you're picking up stones, they'll roll over rolling stones roll over every year, and then you're more likely to be able to get into the race that you want to get into, because I think obviously they've seen, haven't they, the fact that it's so commercially viable, that so many people around the world view the UTMB as like a bucket list kind of a race. So it kind of makes sense to make people, you know, you may as well make some money out of it, and at the same time as catering to all those people that want to do it. And by the fact that they're sort of spreading out these other races, it kind of gives you, you know, almost like the ability to kind of taste a bit of UTMB for yourself, but on a more local scale. So what you guys are doing with UTMB makes perfect sense, doesn't it? As far as tech and as well as.
That's totally our plan with UTS, is that we're not just hosting a little British event, but we're actually hosting a UTMB event that looks and feels very much, you know, like that. So I mentioned the budget before. You know, it's a lot higher than what I'm used to, and yeah, like you said, their brand loyalty. That's a nicer way of terming it. I've heard people saying they're trying to monopolize their brand a little bit, but I don't know. I can see where people are coming from with comments like that. But yeah, I think this is where Ironman have come in. They have their crown jewel event, which is Ironman Hawaii, and by expanding that business into, you know, other Ironman events around the world, I think there are about 140 around the world now, and making those events the qualifying route. That's where that sort of business knowledge comes in, and they've done it with other things like the Cape Epic mountain bike event that they own. So yeah, I can fully understand why people might think it's a little bit too commercial and it's a little bit cash orientated perhaps, but
it's a business model that works though, isn't it? That's the thing, that they put that in place before. Ironman is it's a global brand, people know it. They've got that financial backing is behind. They've got that behind them to be able to do, you know, pretty much to basically take UTMB as far as it will go by injecting, obviously given that cash injection and their experience of putting on major events all around the world. It kind of, because, you know, I've got plenty of friends that are triathletes and you know, proud Ironman, and they're quite happy to go to an Ironman event anywhere in the world because they know that they'll get that same quality of an event. There's no like turning up to an event and things aren't quite as good as they were at a different triathlon that they've done. They know that they can sort of go to any Ironman event around the world and it will be what it says on the thing.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting point. I hadn't considered that personally. Well, I met the people at Ironman in New York a couple of weeks ago at the UTMB conference, but yeah, that's exactly the goal of the UTMB World Series, as well as UTMB are not in this to cut corners and scrimp. We want the best events we can possibly host. And yeah, like you say, we want that to create a level of trust and customer, repeat custom, that this UTMB World Series is seen as operationally the best we can possibly do. So I mean, I've got to admit, I've got a lot of work to do before July, and if it was still my own event, there'd probably be things I'd be cut. I won't bother with that. I don't need that. Cut that corner, save that £5. It's a totally different model with UTMB. That UTMB itself, like your registration fee, they make barely anything on that. It's what they can upsell, that's where they make the money in sponsorship, media rights, the expo, merchandise, those kind of things. But you can only do that when you have a really strong branded event, so similar thing to UTS really. The goal isn't really to make money on entry fees. The goal is to use that to put on the best quality event we possibly can for the runners, and then we can leverage hopefully the success of that event to gain sponsorship and other things.
Yeah, that's great. I'm just going to take that infographic down now. So
Yeah,
we're done. We're quite happy. Explains all that. I'll remove that now. Yeah. So for you personally, then, with UTMB coming on board and doing what they're doing with UTS, how is that going to benefit? I know you've spoken about it already with budget and stuff. How do you? Obviously, you view it as a positive thing, because otherwise you wouldn't have done it. How is it going to benefit you sort of long term going forward with the event?
Yeah, so just to speak quite candidly, I've sold UTS to UTMB basically. This was a long drawn, it took a lot of thinking last summer. Last March, I got an email and it said, "Oh, could you sign this NDA? Would like to speak to you about something." I just thought it was something to do with sponsorship of the Ultra Trail World Tour. And then we had a talk and they said, we're forming this new World Series and we see you as the event we'd like to join in the UK. And I was like pretty flattered. At one point, I don't know, I wrestled with the idea a little bit, because it's like giving away a little baby that you've obsessed over for the last few years, and there was a little bit of difficulty value in something that's on an upward trajectory, whereas so I did back out of the deal at one point, but then I thought I weighed it up a little bit more. The pros being financial security. They were going to offer me a good job working for UTMB. I've been living at my dad's rent-free for the last few years. Very privileged, position to be able to do that. That allowed me to go all in with UTS. But it's also like I'm 33 now, still living with my dad. It's kind of, this is an opportunity to get some financial freedom. So that was a big draw that made me and it's been a really lonely few years, like being a race director as a one-man band. I really welcomed the idea of getting stuck into this UTMB project and being, learning about, marketing and who's who. They've got like a team of 4 people in Chamonix who are just chasing sponsorship and doing that. And so I don't have to worry too much about that kind of thing anymore. I don't have to worry about, wondering, am I going to make enough money? And I can just focus on the things that are, to me as a race director, a bit more important, which is putting on the best possible event we can. So yeah, when I weighed it all up, if I keep the event, it just seemed like a riskier proposition. And if I did that, what's saying UTMB wouldn't try and set their own event up, and then I don't want to be in competition with them, all that kind of thing. So yeah, just signed it off, and so far so good. I mean, like I had to ask the question, like, do I want the best event in the UK that I can possibly do? And the answer was yes. And well, to do that, I think you need the resources that they're bringing to the table. So the CEOs signed off on letting me bring on board a full-time operations manager. So that's something that I might not have been prepared to commit to if the event was still mine and still growing. So there's, I've got that financial safety net really, and everything that comes with having UTMB behind us. going to be launching a new website soon, and it's, you know, super slick. We're getting all yeah, it's just overall, if you want UTS to keep growing and to become, yeah, I have to cast my mind back to 2017 and like that little living in Chamonix in that little bedroom with this little idea. If I want that genuinely to become real, then this was the right path for me.
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't easy. Just to give, like you say, it's almost like it's like giving a child away.
Yeah, a little bit.
But knowing that if that was your original vision for it to be such a big event, and then knowing that it would take you possibly a long time to get it to that stage, but this was a fast way of doing it and giving yourself some security. Moving forward financially, it's all good, isn't it? Do you think though, as as a runner yourself and knowing the industry, and then we've already talked about Ironman, because I'd heard this subject come up quite a few times before, where people were like, "Oh, Ironman, they're going to come in and they're going to just like decimate the sport and just turn it into a cash cow." What are your views on the way that cash is being injected into the sport? Do you think it's ultimately it's for the benefit long term of the sport, or is it going to be tricky for them?
It's an interesting concept. I think personally, I think those views are unfounded. Yes, Ironman triathlon events are expensive, but I think the potential benefits outweigh the negative. I don't know what the damage to the sport would be really, but I mean, we're not. Yeah, I'm just trying to sympathise with those views. I think it's just a lot of trail runners romanticize the sport as more of a bare bones, it's like dirt bags, and you've got to, people like cheap entry feet.
I suppose because you've got like people that are attracted to trail running are also attracted to kind of things like like surfing and snowboarding and being outdoors. So, but even those sports are expensive anyway, aren't they? Although you give the impression of being out, open and free and everything, they're not as cheap as people like to think they are. So
yeah, I don't know why Ironman gets so much stick as well. Like the events look really well organised. I met some of the team, like I said, and they're passionate about sport themselves. I met the race director for Ironman Cork, and he's a lovely guy, loves his cycling. They just seem like a nice bunch, really. I guess it's just, I don't know. I guess when someone's making a lot of money, maybe I'm going to stick my neck out here. Maybe there's a tinge of, I don't know, that they don't want that in the sport. But like most race directors, we've got to be honest, we're in this to make money, whether that's just a living or, there are not many not-for-profit events out there. I mean, the Lakeland 100, Mark runs that as a not-for-profit. Hats off to him, that's awesome. But yeah, the vast majority of ultra running events are not fell running, where it's, minimal entry fee. It's a lot of people out there who are trying to do the similar thing but on a smaller scale. I don't know, maybe people feel like that's okay because you're just supporting a small one person who's trying to feed his family kind of thing. I get that. I mean, I don't have too much contact with Ironman. It's not like they've just barged in and no, we're doing this now, and it's not like that at all. UTMB still have the controlling share, so the World Series is still theirs. I think, I get it. I get where people are coming from. There's a little bit of a hesitation as, where's this going to go? But I mean, there's still going to be your grassroots events out there. There's still going to be something for everyone. The goal's not to try and take over and, like, I don't know, completely monopolize the sport or anything. We're just trying to do our own World Series that gets you through to UTMB, and in the process, if that means we can create some awesome events around the world that people are prepared to travel to, then great.
I think there's probably always going to be a bit of pushback with anything when any kind of the sport kind of grows from being grassroots to being a bit more, I don't want to say mainstream, but a bit more popular. But I suppose the positive way you could think about it is that if they're, they've got this cash injection coming into the sport, then there's young trail runners that are coming up in the sport that will probably be able to be, fully professional and get paid wages. Whereas, I've been running for 20 years, but also running for sort of like 9-10 years. And I've got no doubts that I'm well past ever being good enough to be a professional. But it's been nice to know that young guys could sort of make a real career out of running. And I think, like they do in other areas of running and sport, make ultra and trail running become a thing where people get paid really, really well to do the things that they love. Because we know, don't we, that people sell products, don't they? If you've got a trail runner that is famous and wins lots of, you can guarantee you put their name to something, they will sell a product. So it's kind of I view it as a natural progression. At first I thought maybe I was one of the ones that thought, Ironman money coming into it and a bit of a global, capitalising on things. But the more I've sort of learned about it and reasoned on it, to me it just seemed like a natural progression of the sport, the money to come into it, for it to progress. What is that? How you feel? Obviously.
Yeah, I think the point I'd make, the argument is that, road running. I mean, not too long ago, that was very much working class. There was no money in that, and now look at where it is today. I mean, has that been bad for running? You might argue that where there's money, there's doping, and that's where the way, if money comes into trail running, it'll follow a similar. I don't know. I think we'll have to cross that bridge if and when we come to it. But like you say, if the sport of trail running does become a bit more, like you say, mainstream or commercial, and with that comes an influx of sponsorship money to support athletes to pursue those life goals, then I don't know. I don't think that's such a bad thing, really. It's not all take with UTMB either. They do a lot to preserve the trails, and we are super keen on. Well, we want UTS to be carbon positive in the coming years. We've got some plans next year for a nationwide transport plan, so we really want to lead from the front when it comes to the event side of developing the sport and doing the right thing. But yeah, I mean, you can't really do all that stuff when you're breaking even, or if you've got a small event, you need the numbers and the revenue to play with to get those things off the ground. So I can see both sides of the argument. In the fell running scene, that they've banned use of GPS watches to keep that sport, as grassroots and I'm not going to get into how I feel about all that, but I've sympathised with both views. But yeah, it'll be exciting to see, if we have this conversation in 5 years. Maybe it's not a lot has changed. We have a more established UTMB World Series, and I don't know. I don't think there's going to be any millionaire trail runners anytime soon. It's
yeah, maybe a couple. Yeah. Well, how would you feel sort of as far as like prize money for races? What are your views on what sort of kind of prizes that you get now and what could be on offer in the future?
It's difficult. UTMB are not stipulating that World Series events have to have prize money, but the UTMB World Series finals do have prize money. It's not a lot, I've got to admit. But what's interesting is, I can't give any figures away, but I've seen what brands pay out in terms of bonuses, to their athletes if they win Western States or various other events, and that tends to be a lot more than the prize money that's on offer. So race organisers who don't offer prize money can but have a high entry fee can sometimes get quite a lot of stick. But if you actually looked at the bottom line of their events, once everything's paid for, offering a decent prize money of say 1,500 quid, a grand, 500, it'd be a big chunk out of their bottom line, really. So that's just me speaking as a race director with experience of offering prize money at my other Skyrunner event. But it is fair to assume that once an event gets us to a certain level and it's, you know, it's out of the woods financially, then I think it depends on what does that prize money give to the race director in return. If they put on a decent prize purse and it attracts big names to the event and therefore gives that marketing exposure in return, then it's a good investment. But if you're just doing it, I don't know, yeah, putting on, because it can add up quite quickly. If you've got 3 races and you're offering an equal prize purse for men's and women's, you know, you could be looking at easily over 10 grand. Yeah, and if you're putting that on, but not, you know, it's just some local runner that turns up and wins. I mean, it's a bit, I don't know. Yeah, you're not really supporting full-time athletes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, very true. Yeah. So UTS then, when is it this year? Sell it to me. Why do people in the UK want to come to UTS this year?
It was an event set up by runner for runner, with the similar vision of wanting to put on a mountain runner's dream race here in the UK. It's the only, apart from maybe the Skyline Scotland events, it's the only, I don't know, probably setting myself up for failure here, but it's one of a few marked course events that goes over the big mountainous regions in the UK. So UK's only UTMB World Series event. Make of that what you will. But yeah, it's a real product of passion. You know, I don't have multiple events. I've had to cut back on other stuff and really focus on this. So yeah, if you want to experience an event that's really been a labour of love to someone, then I like to think that we've got the goods to back up the claim that we're one of the best, hopefully, UK events out there for mountain lovers.
Yeah, and it is a proper hardcore mountain race.
But I started designing the routes when I was recceing the Paddy Buckley round, and I didn't design it to be hard as nails. It's just I designed the routes and then realised, blimey, there's a lot of climbing there that's like the same as UTMB, the 100-miler, and it just goes over a lot of technical trails. So the event strapline it's beautiful beyond belief and savage beyond reason. And I think that sums it up quite well. You know, it takes you to some spectacular areas, and I think that sums up mountain ultra running in general. Really, it's all about the highs and the lows, and yeah, you won't regret making it to that finish line. I can guarantee you that. I've seen people crying and they like want to give me a hug and stuff, and it's get emotional thinking about it now. But yeah, it's a sport that it's an event I think that really, I hope, encapsulates the ethos of our sport.
And a great flagship event for the UTMB to be able to promote around the world.
Yeah.
Will you get people coming from abroad to it, or do you think it's going to attract just a UK based set of athletes, you think?
Yeah, I've just was looking at the start list the other day, and they look very international. I'm just going to let me just have a look on the live trail 1 sec. So like in the 100-miler, we've got South Africa, Sweden, Poland, Netherlands, Denmark, Great Britain, Spain. That's just the first 10 people. Ireland, France, Lithuania, Latvia, Yemen, Japan. Any others? New Zealand. Yeah. So yeah, that was always the goal as well, was to have more of an international profile where, you know, roughly a third, if not more, 30 to 40% ideally, are international. So coming to experience Snowdonia. That's really humbling to know that people are prepared to make that effort to come to little old North Wales, which is my backyard.
Wow, it's amazing. Yeah, it just shows, you know, the quality of the event, and that it attracts people from around the world. So yeah, I think you've got an event to be proud of, and
yeah, thanks.
Forward to hearing how it goes. I'll see how brave I am as far as signing up for one of the races soon.
No, you're welcome anytime.
You'll hear from me. But I appreciate your time tonight talking to us, and hopefully people have got a bit of a clearer idea of how the system works with the stones and these events.
Yeah, and
if anyone wants to sort of clarify anything, is it best to sort of get in touch with you directly? Is there any way that people?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if anyone's got any questions or queries, my email is michael.jones@utmb.world. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I'll put if you don't mind, your email address going in. I'll show notes and everything, and get in touch with people, and I'll put it on the post as well. So, cool. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time talking to us.
All right, no problem. Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Bye.